What's going on out there with everyone? It's Tuesday morning, early in the AM. There's pretty much nothing big time going on right now. Not over my head that I can see at the moment. We got pretty clear skies. We had some clouds and a little bit of rain here. Few needed inches. Too bad we couldn't have got it earlier during the growing season. But we got a little bit. So let's take a look at what's going on around the globe. And when we think about the, at least for me, the Canary Islands and what we're hearing and looking at and reading and thinking about, if you just look at it, it doesn't appear to be much on the surface, just looking. But there's a lot of stuff underneath the water. And so it is wise to keep an eye on it. They must be worried about something to the population by evacuating some, from everything that I've read. So let's spin her around and see what's going on. Southern Greece, 5.1 on the 10th of October, 4.7 on October 9th, Central Mediterranean Sea. Now around here doesn't look to be doing very bad at all. Not in that region. We had a 4.4 on the 10th in Afghanistan and a 4.5 on the 11th in Tajikistan. I think I pronounced that halfway right. This area doesn't look too bad. 4.8 October the 10th in Indonesia. A 5.3 on the 10th in Papua New Guinea. A 4.8 on the 11th in Solomon Islands. That was a few days ago there. We've got a 4.9 on the 11th in the Kermadec Islands region. A 5.3 on the 10th in the Kermadec Islands region. And we remember the 6.1 on the 7th in the Kermadec Islands. Australia, you're doing well, you're calm. We have a 4.6 on the 10th in the Guam region. Japan is pulsating somewhat. A 4.7 on the 10th in the Japan region. A 5 on the 11th in Japan. A 4.7 on the 11th in Japan. And a 5.7 on the 10th in Japan. Now Russia got a 5.1 on the 10th. And 4.5 on the 10th. Northwest of the Kuril Islands. We have a 4 even on the 10th in Alaska. We have some 3s and 2s throughout. We stretch around. 4.2 on the 10th in the Canada region. Swinging to our own land. Mainland, the homeland. 3.1 on the 10th in Colorado. And then you go over here and you see just a real pepper load of 2s all over the place. All the way up into Nevada. Throughout California all the way up. They're usually getting about that or into a 3. You got a 4.2 on the 10th in Mexico. You get a 4.5 on the 11th in Guatemala. Now Chile and Argentina and such over here, they did very well on the last day. As did the Cuban region and the Virgin Islands. They took a day off and they need it. We did also see a 2.4 on the 9th in Virginia, up here. So, overall, for the most part, if you can say it, it's been fairly calm. You know, except for the 6.1 here recently. So I want to move on to a couple of other things that I want to take care of. It's real important that you try to tell things to the best of your ability with good intentions from start throughout whatever you're doing, if that's what you're trying to do, is to share things and help people and spread truth. So I want to go right here. Now this one here, he has been messaged in written form that what he says and matches with an object isn't what it is. And he's also been responded to in video form. And apparently it's to no avail. So, this is from today. And my advice to everyone is just do the easy thing and go check for yourself. And the first thing you should, ask is, was that object there the year before? Was that object there 2 years ago? Or how about 3? Or maybe even 4? And go and look and see in the same pretty well time area of the year prior in time, is it there? And you can find it. And if it is, well, if it is, then it is what it is. And that's what we've been saying all along. So, this is supposedly, I believe it was said that it's not moving, it's staying. So, I've already got it on 1, this is the first frame, 1 of 48. And I've got it ran all the way from the 6th all the way through the 11th. And I'm going to start it, and I've got it slowed down pretty slow. And you guys can be the judge if this moves that way or not. And after it's all said and done, you're going to know the truth if you think about it. So what do you think? I've got the film slowed down. You can play it full speed if you want, but I already have. Does it look like that's getting any closer to that line? Let's go one more time. Give you a good view. But like I said, you can check for yourself. You don't have to take anybody's word. That looked like it's almost to the line. That's frame 48. This would be your line. Here is frame 1. Here's your line. And that's all that needs to be said about that. You just got to think for yourself and check into things if you really want to know. Yeah, I guess we're trolls since we know and we try to tell you. So yeah, there you are on that one. This is very troubling to me. I had not read this, found this. Nobody had ever told me that this was of such out there or anything like that. And one thing I didn't mention is I don't have anything against either one of these gentlemen. So it's nothing personal. Let me get that across. It's all about telling the truth. Now, this is an article about a doctor, Dr. Byron Glenn, and all our Nibiru, Comet Ellen and such work. Some of the things is supposed to have been come from Dr. Byron Glenn. Now, early on, when his name got mentioned in all of this stuff, I asked and I wrote, who is this guy? You know, people want to know. Is he real, fake, made up? You know, what is he? And I got an answer. It was vague. I didn't really know any more than what I did before I asked. But yeah, I'd always questioned this guy here. The information sounded pretty good. If it's real. And that's what you could never tell for sure until you either see it or you never do. So let's go through this. This is the Cape Doctor, and he says he's not leading a survivalist group and has been harassed by believers in Planet X. That's Dr. Byron Glenn at Cape Urgent Care. Byron Glenn says he wants nothing to do with the people he sees online. You know, he says they're crackpots trumpeting a conspiracy wrapped in an enigma. And he's not alone. The folks at NASA have tried to debunk what they say are wild conspiracies involving Elenin, a wimpy projectile expected to remain more than 20 million miles from Earth. Well, at least they've been right in September. Glenn said he's been harassed and threatened by doomsday believers of Planet X, an idea spreading in the blogosphere and online chat rooms about a brown dwarf star, a low-mass object rapidly approaching the solar system and bent on destroying much of the Earth. He said that believers, apparently followers of Terrell L. Croft, or Terrell 03, as he is known in anxiety-ridden chat rooms, have shown up at his North Mount Auburn Road family practice demanding answers. I'm not the leader of any group. Okay, this is supposedly quotes, and it's coming supposedly from Dr. Byron Glenn himself. And if that is to be believed and true, I'm not the leader of any group. I can't tell people what to do. I don't want to. He told the Southeast Missourian last week when asked about his connection to Croft's research group, reportedly made up of people who plan to head for caves in Missouri's Ozarks in the coming weeks. Now you see, this is an older article, I believe, from July. The plan, according to Croft, which would be Terrell 03, and a series of online correspondence in recent months, is to ride out the earthquake, flood, volcanoes, and other calamities they believe to be coming thanks to the magnetic and polarizing effects of Planet X. We already knew all that, so that's nothing new. Croft, Terrell 03, in letters to members of the groups, describes Glenn as his good friend, a man he's been acquainted with for some time. He and others say Glenn is leading the Ozark survivalists. Glenn says he's never met Croft. A man he describes as out there and on the edge. A Revelation chaser and September 11th conspiracist. Well, he hasn't said yet he doesn't know him. I mean, meeting and not knowing is a couple of different things. I'm not the leader of any Ozark survival group, Glenn said. Others say he is. Most notably Terrell, who in his more recent interview messages claims our survival group leader and physician, Dr. Byron Glenn, and his engineer son saw some disturbing things in their expensive telescope. Dr. Glenn was able to zoom in on the area of our dwarf star to realize he was looking at a monster of great size. We cannot see the actual dwarf star, but now he can make out the dark area and the dancing stars in the background created by the gravitational leasing effect. He wasn't reachable at a phone number provided to the Southeast Missourian by a source from New York, who said he fears the group may be attracting and hurting unwitting believers. Terrell believes the object will become visible as the second sun in early September, at which time the earthquakes, volcanoes, rogue tides, mass animal deaths, and the whole 9 yards are going to escalate out of control for crap to hit the fan. I anticipated some things like that. They did not occur. They answered many questions as far as Comet Elenin. They showed that Comet Elenin could not cause calamity like that in the shape that it is now, if it's broken in 2 or more pieces, or if it's complete and it's artificial. We just went through alignment. We went through perihelion. Nothing to speak of. So we have to learn from these things and understand them and realize that it does have its place in what is going to happen and what's going on. But it turns out that this is not itself a pole shifter, because we know it wasn't a dwarf now. That's one thing you check off. Comet Elenin is no dwarf. We know that, so we put that information to use in thinking about what is really happening. Croft, who reportedly resides in Florida, and others say they're planning to head for the hills around August the 1st. A series of photographs will clearly show the force of destruction he asserts is coming. You can read on down here. Here's Dr. Glenn. He claims it's all a bunch of nonsense. He said the expensive telescope he is supposed to own is actually an 8-inch model with a camera lens, and that he is nothing more than an amateur astronomer. While the doctor he acknowledges he did take some photos of the comet. He said people in the chat room group are attaching more significance to the pictures than they should. Unlike the Harold Camping of end-time prophecies that caught the public's attention and scorn this year, Glenn said he doesn't, nor does anyone, know the hour of the Earth's fall. But Glenn says he has seen something in that telescope. Something on 3 consecutive nights. Something that didn't go away. Okay. Well, so we have a kind of a vague answer there, but we do have a confirmation that he has seen something in his telescope, something on 3 nights in a row, and it was there every night, and it didn't go away. While he may not ally himself with the research group, the doctor does believe there's something very bad in the wind. I'm watching. I have a watchful eye, Glenn said, asserting that something serious is causing a rash of volcanoes and massive earthquakes. like the 9.0 quake that struck Japan. He claims to know something, the same thing NASA knows, the President knows, the Defense Department knows, but Glenn says there's no use in talking about it, and the leaders in the know can't talk about it either. Who's going to go to work? Who's going to the power company? Think about it. How much food would be on the shelf at a grocery store? How jam-packed would the highways be? Referring to what he believed would be the chaos caused if the public learned of a looming destruction. If you don't go through the ruse, people know something's up. Everybody must be entertained. He was referring to the movie Network. Absolute nonsense, said Dr. Don Yeomans, manager of NASA's Near-Earth Object Program office in California. The people who watch comets and asteroids for a living. Yeomans said there's been a lot of internet buzz about brown dwarf stars and the like in recent years, something he said began with a woman, I never heard this, who said she was channeling aliens from a star system. He said some folks who apparently flunked high school science say this Planet X is imminent. Now that's a slam. It's not, Yeoman said. It's completely baseless. If a brown dwarf were to pass by the Earth and Sun as soon as the 26th of September, which it didn't obviously, it would light up the sky even without a telescope now. Why haven't we seen it, and why have the effects not been noted by the motions of the other planets, which they haven't? Comet Elenin, first discovered last year, has been gradually moving closer to the Earth. Not expected to move any closer than 22 million miles from the Earth. And that's not even that close, Yeoman said, calling Elenin a fairly modest, mediocre comet, which it has been in September. It's a bit wimpy by cometary standards, he said, noting the light makeup of comets, dust, and ice. NASA has given up trying to combat all the misinformation online. So many of them, they don't talk science. They're passionate believers who enjoy the publicity they get. It's whistling into the wind, trying to convince them otherwise. The research group sees something different. And whatever Glenn knows, he's not telling. Asked about it all, he referred to the famous line in the military tribunal movie, A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Well, I agree that there's something looming, but I can't get on board that the picture of what I showed to everybody on Google Sky is a dwarf. I have not been able to prove that that's just not a result of the layering and stacking that they talked about in the way they laced everything together in the photos and stuff. Until I can definitively prove that is not correct, then I don't think it's right to point to that. You know, it was an oddity to wonder if it was or was not, and it still is, but and maybe it is, but I can't prove it to you. You know, I can show it, but I can't say it is. Only to a certain degree. And as far as location, I have an idea in my head, but I don't believe it's 38 days behind Elenin. Because we would be rocking and rolling right now if we got something like that that was just 38 days away. Now, with the way things have been calm, that's all you have to do is look around you, you know, and look at everything in a whole. And what we've seen is nothing, really. I mean, nothing exploding anywhere gigantic or anything. It's like we're in a lull. So if I were going to say, I would say that it's one of two ways. It's in our system, inside the inner solar system, but not by much, and coming in, or it resides just on the outside of that. But I don't think it's 38 days away from Elenin. But that doesn't mean I don't think it can't do anything from being as far away as it is and getting closer. That's what I thought all along. And this gentleman here, he didn't say he disagreed with anything, and he was very vague, which is something that I've tried to nail down ever since I heard about this guy. But it does bother me what was said about he doesn't know him and he's not the leader of the survival group. Well, you have, you can understand that the response is going to be, he's a doctor, he's upstanding in the community and such, and he doesn't want to be tagged with anything like this that would hurt his reputation or his practice or his family or anything. So understanding that, you just have to try and filter out what is the truth out of this. I don't know if he's going to answer it. I don't know if Terrell knows about it or not, but I put it out there on one of my likes so everybody could look at this and see what you thought. Now, I like Terrell, personally. I don't have nothing against him. And he's a real good researcher, and he means well. And I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt and stuff, but I do catch some things here that is bothering me about this article. So it is something to think about whenever you're sharing information with people and you're trying to show them the truth about things. The truth is what it is. And when somebody shows you what it is, then you know. So, y'all be safe. And whatever it is you do, driving to work, at your work. We had a guy got hurt, a few weeks back out where I work, had a head injury, and it really did him some serious damage in a different section of where I work. But things can change in an instant. So I'm keeping on looking up. I'm just not seeing anything right now. And we're moving close to the 16th, I know. I was going to show you some of my stellarium tonight and show a little more location of Comet Elenin. But we'll do that in the next video that I put up in the next day or two or something like that. But you don't feel too much of a rumble if something's going to happen on the 16th or 17th. You just don't see it. The earthquakes were not that high, even though we had a 6.1 a few days ago. So I'll keep my eyes open, and God bless every one of you. And I'm going to go ahead and get this posted for y'all, and I'll speak to you pretty soon. A lot of stuff to see up there.